Hey everyone, Nick Russo here. As promised, we'll import our standalone Lua code into Mudlet by creating an alias. An alias is a keyboard shortcut allowing players to perform actions by typing a few characters. I currently have Mudlet open and I've loaded the correct profile, but I haven't connected to any game. In fact, I don't need to. It makes sense to test our code offline before we jump into the game and try to use it there. I'll click on Aliases to begin. Then I'll click Add Item to create a new alias specific to our Hangman helper. Each alias needs a name, and I recommend keeping it self-explanatory so Hangman helper makes sense to me. Then we need to match a pattern. This is a Perl regular expression or regex, and if you're a Python coder, don't worry. The syntax is very similar, and unless you're doing something advanced, you probably don't need to learn anything new. The caret and $sign are anchors matching the start and end of line respectively. \s and \w and \d, along with their uppercase variants, work exactly as they do in Python. We can extract user input in conjunction with aliases using parentheses. I propose the following pattern. We'll start by matching the beginning of the line, followed by HH, which is short for Hangman helper. Then we'll match one or more whitespace characters, followed by one or more characters from the set of lowercase letters A through Z, or the underscore to represent a mystery letter. This will capture the word in process. Then we'll match one or more whitespace characters again, followed by one or more characters from lowercase a through Z. This will match our wrong letters. We'll finish up with a $sign to indicate the end of the line. Don't immediately start trying to shoehorn your script into Mudlet. Let's test our alias matching logic first. In Mudlet, there is a table called matches, which is a global variable. Matches sub1 contains the entire text of the line matched, while matches sub2 and beyond contain the parenthetical groupings. While it's possible to iterate over the key value pairs of this table using a for loop, Mudlet has a built-in display function to simplify things. Let's just display the matches table so you can see what I mean. Now that I've coded that up, I'll click Save and close the alias window. Back at the Mudlet command line, we can test our alias. The example doesn't really matter because we're only trying to reflect our input, so I'll quickly type something. We see a table with 3 elements returned, which reinforces what I said earlier. The first match contains the entire text of the line matched, the second contains the word in process, and the third contains the wrong letters. Now, let's open our Hangman helper alias to insert the real code. I'll quickly paste in our script from the last video with no changes. Thinking about our Hangman script, we won't be reading the inputs from the arg table anymore, but rather from the matches table. We need to change arg sub1 into matches sub2 and arg sub2 into matches sub3. That's an easy change, and I hope it is intuitive. Let's also delete the definition of the local echo variable. As mentioned previously, echo is built into Mudlet, and this technique obviates the need to perform find replace everywhere, which introduces unnecessary risk. I'll save and quit so we can test this on the command line. This time, we aren't simply reflecting our input values back to the terminal. This looks pretty good. Not only do we see our 5 lines of debugging output, but we see the suggestions for our word in process. I don't expect you to remember it, but these are the same suggestions we saw in the previous video. If I were to connect to the game right now, this alias would work just the same. We aren't interacting with any game in any way, as this is just locally processed logic. Perhaps you realize that our Hangman helper is fairly generic. By embedding it into a single alias, we are limiting its reusability. We could define a function within the scripts feature of Mudlet instead. This would allow other Mudlet elements, like additional aliases and triggers, to leverage this logic. To save a bunch of typing and copy-pasting, I've created a script behind the scenes which does exactly that. I'll click on scripts so we can review it. The function is named Hangman helper, and it takes two parameters, the word in process and the wrong letters. Because these are parameters, I deleted the corresponding local variables as we expect the caller to pass them in. Now that we've defined this function, let's head back to our alias. I'll quickly retool the code in our alias to simply call the Hangman helper function. We pass in matches sub2 and matches sub3 as parameters, which will map to the word in process and wrong letters arguments respectively. Now, other aliases and triggers can call the Hangman helper function the same way, passing in whatever strings they want. I'll save and quit so we can retest. Okay, I'll hit enter so we can ensure that the integration between the alias and the script function is working. We get the exact same output as we did earlier, indicating that nothing broke during the refactor. Let's head back to our script function for some cleanup. In real life, players don't need to see these 5 lines of debugging. We could individually comment them out by prepending a double hyphen to each line. Alternatively, we can use a multi-line string to encompass all 5 lines. In Lua, we use double square brackets at either end, which compares to the Python triple quote technique. However, in Lua, this string must be assigned to something, so I've defined a throwaway variable. I'll save this and close the window so we can conduct a final test. Again, I'll hit enter once more to ensure we still see our Hangman suggestions. Okay, this looks good to me. We get our suggested words without the intermediate debugging. Working through problems step by step, especially when you are learning a new language, is extremely helpful. Join me next time to see how we tie this in with real gameplay using triggers and clickable links. See you there.